The third African Ministerial Conference on Financing for Development is being attended by African ministers of finance and those responsible for environmental issues, representatives from international bodies such as the World Bank and African Development Bank, the United Nations Environment Programme, and other senior officials from around 20 African countries. From the conference theme, Climate Change, Financing Opportunities and Challenges to Achieve the Millennium Development Goals in Africa, discussions focused on the challenges posed by climate change and to agree on a common African position on possible solutions for negotiation at a major meeting to be held in Copenhagen in December under the auspices of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Presented researches on this first day of the conference show that Africa requires $1.2 billion to mitigate the consequences of climate change. Without addressing these challenges, by the year 2030, the African continent will need $10 billion to address climate change in light of achieving the MDGs. The root causes of climate change lie largely with the world's developed economies and their emissions of greenhouse gases. Therefore, developing economies in Africa find it imperative for developed nations to develop fair mechanisms that allow the developing countries to finance win-win measures across Africa's economies now. The measures would address the effects of climate change, such as increased temperatures, flooding and droughts, which will negatively affect agriculture on the African continent and a majority of the population's livelihoods that depend on the agricultural sector. Addressing the gathering, President Paul Kagame reiterated the importance of African countries placing the environment at the center stage of the development process, where it belongs.
This conference is timely. It should not only enable us to discuss the environmental challenges our continent faces, but even more importantly, this meeting should permit us to achieve a key imperative, placing the environment at the center stage of development processes where it belongs.
President Kagame added that addressing the climate change and its effects as a top priority would be safeguarding the livelihoods of around 70% of Africa's population that utilize the environment through agriculture to make a living.
From a labor perspective, the bulk of our continent's employment comes from utilization of the environment. The agricultural sector alone employs over 70% of the African population, and in Rwanda's case, over 80%. This being the case, therefore, mitigating environmental challenges, including climate change, water availability, sustainable extraction of minerals, and soil fertility management, should be among Africa's top priorities.
This Kigali conference will provide an opportunity to answer questions such as whether African countries have taken advantage of the existing financing facilities for climate change, how they can access them, and how innovative and additional financing can be raised. This will be part of the conference's compilation of an emerging Africa strategy to generate new, additional and adequate financing during the Copenhagen December 2009 negotiations. Sandra Nzaramba, Rwanda Television.